Good day to you all. So I'd just like to present myself briefly. As Stefan said, my background is legal, so I'm a lawyer, but I'm involved in the work of Share Foundation for several years. So basically what we do, we are a Serbia-based NGO, and what we do is basically trying to protect free and decentralized internet. And what I especially do, as Stefan said, I'm a privacy and data protection coordinator. So we basically try to understand what is happening with all basic human rights in digital environments. So basically we fought for these human rights for centuries, and then internet came and everything could be changed. So how privacy works, how freedom of expression works, access to knowledge, security that we talked about a lot here, everything is changed with the internet. And today I'm going to present you a few of our researches. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about internet infrastructure. So when we think about internet, we all see our phones, our computers. There are no wires everywhere, so we think that basically this information are traveling through some air to the other continents or whatever. But basically internet is really physical. Other than Wi-Fi in this room, basically you're all using your phones on some Wi-Fi, and it is wireless, but only until the first router that is somewhere in this building. After that, all information are traveling through good old cables all the way through mud and buildings and oceans and so on and so on. So what we try to understand is what is happening with information. For example, imagine that you are taking your computer and you're typing www.facebook.com. So this information has to travel all the way to the US. So, and this happened in approximately, depending on your internet connection, but in approximately 0.6 seconds. So we examined what happened in this 0.6 seconds. And we did this in Belgrade. So basically, after this information was sent from our computer, it travels really quickly to the SBB Telepark, which is the biggest internet service provider in Serbia. And after that, it begins a long journey. And it goes to the Frankfurt. This is the biggest internet exchange point in the world. So what is the internet exchange point? You can imagine it like you're traveling by plane and you want to get to US, but there is no direct flight. So basically you have to go to other cities and other airports. So Frankfurt is the biggest airport in Europe, but it's also the biggest internet exchange point for all the information that is traveling throughout the world. So our package traveled to Frankfurt, here, and after that it went to Ireland, to Dublin, where is the headquarters of Facebook in Europe. After that it goes to Skewjack in the UK, in a building that looks something like this. And so I also have to say all these pictures are just found on the internet, so basically Google Maps and Google Earth. And after this destination, it travels all the way to New Jersey. So basically it travels to transatlantic cables. So I don't know if you know that, but there is a cable that is connecting US and Europe that goes in the ocean. And interesting thing, this cable was actually first made in 1866, so in 19th century. And back then it took 1 minute to transfer 8 words. And it's changed a lot from that time. So after New Jersey, it's going to Ashburn, and finally to North Carolina. This is a Facebook data center in North Carolina, US. So data center looks something like this. So it was a really interesting journey for this information, and it traveled to a lot of cities. So why is this important other than you saw these buildings? This is important because when you're communicating over internet, when you're communicating with Facebook or any other website, you're basically not communicating directly. This information, all your data is traveling through many countries to many jurisdictions, and basically that means that at every stop somebody makes a copy of this data. So basically all these countries have different surveillance regulation, different data retention regulation, so all of them in a way are keeping your data, and we don't know how they use them. So I don't know, can you see this well? I don't think it's too bright, but this is basically, we did this for 50 most visited websites in Serbia. So basically, let me see, okay. So basically these are the starting points, and the blue dots are all the places where our information is stopping for some time. So you can see a lot of data stays in Budapest, in Vienna, in Frankfurt, and all the way in some other cities in US. So, this was just a first part of how internet works, and here we talked a lot about data economy. Many of speakers talked about it, and to simplify things about data economy, it's easy to say that Facebook and Google are not free. Okay, so you're not paying it with money, but everybody who uses it pays it with data. So we are leaving a lot of personal data on Facebook and Google, then they use this data, they're selling for advertising purposes, and that is how they make money. I mean, they are the biggest company in the world, so data is really precious. And somebody yesterday said, okay, but it's a fair trade, you can use Facebook or Google, or you cannot, or maybe you don't want to use it, and these are all the free services in a way, so you have to pay it somehow, so it's a fair trade. But what we explored is something else. So how would I say this? You don't have to use Facebook and Google in order for them to have your data. So how is this possible? Have you ever imagined, how is it possible that you are on your computer, I don't know, you want to go to Barcelona and you're just checking some hotels, and then 2 hours later you're on your mobile phone and there is so many advertising about Barcelona whatsoever. So I'm going to try to explain how this is happening. So there is something that every website, almost every website in the world has, those are these third-party applications. So they call them cookies or trackers, and basically what they do that they are collecting your data. Every time you visit a website, any website, there are these small applications that are collecting your data about your behavior. So to be frank, those are not the data that you're leaving on the Facebook. Those are not pictures, those are not your communication, but these data can be really sensitive. Those are data, like if they are properly analyzed, those are data about when you sleep, when you are on the internet, what is your location, so what are your maybe sexual preferences, what is the book that you are reading, so very, very interesting data. And how do they work? So basically what we did, we analyzed again 50 most visited websites in Serbia, and we tried to understand what are these trackers that are used on these websites and what are the companies that uses them. So it looks something like this. So it's a big infographic. So here we have websites. Here are the third-party apps or cookies that are used on these websites, and these are the companies that are gathering this data. So let me just, so let me get to the point. So basically, 90% of the websites that we visited had Google tracker. So basically, there was 50 websites, 45 of them, if you visited them, Google had your data. 46% of websites had Facebook trackers, and maybe what is interesting for you, 36% of websites had Genius cookies, which is a Polish company. Let me just check to this. So as I said, we analyzed 50 websites, and what we found out that average website has 7.3 cookies or trackers. So why is this so, let me say, annoying? Because, as I said, if you're using Facebook, you basically maybe know or don't know what you're giving. You're getting some service or whatever. But with these trackers, you basically are not aware that you're giving away some of your most personal data. So here we can go a bit more into details, but I don't want to bother with that, with Google trackers, Facebook trackers, and at the end, let's come to see actually who is profiting from data economy. As you can see, the biggest part of data economy, at least when we are looking at Serbian website, is going to US. So those are American companies. American companies are basically making most of the money. What is maybe interesting again for you is that Poland has its share of this market because of the game use. Yeah. So now I'm going to go briefly in the world of mobile application, and we also talked about it a lot. This is just some old infographic of WhatsApp, but I want to talk to you about what is happening when you authorize a mobile application on your mobile phone. I guess you're all using mobile phones and smartphones in this room, and you have a lot of applications. And in order to use them, you have to give permission for application. And what you see here, this beautiful picture that our designer made, is all the permissions that average user in Serbia gave when using its phone. So average user uses around 27 mobile applications per month. Before you start using application, you basically have to accept terms and conditions. So these are usually very big text, and we calculated that this person should spend something like 2 days in order to read all these terms and conditions. So basically nobody does that, even the researchers as we are, so we just calculated how much time they need. And what are these permissions? So when you accepted these terms and conditions, you gave these companies such as YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, ability to use your phone. So basically what can they do? They can read your messages, they can see your photos, they can send messages, they can read your sensitive logs. So basically they can also get to your passwords or whatever. What they usually say is that this is necessary for applications to work. So basically their designers are saying, yeah, we have to have this permission in order for our application to work. But this is just not true, because if we also analyze some privacy-friendly applications. So if we look at these applications, or web or bot, which are Tor applications, you can see they only use something like 4 or 5 permissions. So it's possible for this application to work in order if they use only few permissions. But why do they do this? Why do they need so much permissions? Well, because they need your data. And somebody yesterday mentioned this application, Clean Master. So it's basically an application that does nothing on your phone. It doesn't clean anything, but look at how many permission you have to give them and how many data they will gather from you. So let me just... So I'm going to skip this, it's a bit more complicated. So yeah, all of this research and many more you can check more on our website, www.labs.rs. And at the end, I want to talk to you about general data protection regulation. So in the beginning, I tried to explain to you what are the new risks, what are the new issues with privacy and data protection on the internet, and maybe this is one of the solutions. So for those of you who don't know, General Data Protection Regulation is a document adopted by European Parliament, which is going to be directly applicable to all European Union members, and it was adopted this spring, and it's going to be directly applicable in 2018. So basically you have something like 2 years to implement everything that is in it. And it is, I would say, a really important document. It is the best chance for citizens to gain control over their data again. So there are some new things in it, but what I wanted to analyze, because what this conference is how are children's rights perceived in this General Data Protection Regulation. So this is, before this document, the most of data protection laws in European countries were age blind. So this is basically the first document that is recognizing that children deserve specific protection on the internet because they are less aware of all the risks, and that these concern especially the use of their data for marketing or creating personality or user profiles. Also, what is prescribed in GDPR is that children have to be informed about their rights and about what is happening with their data in a clear and plain language, because even let's say, adults cannot understand what says in terms and conditions, and because children has less knowledge, they have to be presented in some other way. How this will be implemented, I don't know still, but this is really important. Also, the right to be forgotten is introduced, and this can be also very important. There are two reasons. One reason is that children are posting a lot about them with photos and videos, and the right to be forgotten will give them one tool how this data may be erased one day when they realize they didn't want to post this. And it's not just that the children are posting much about them, also the parents are basically posting their children photos since the day they're born. So hopefully this right will be useful for new generation. And I wanted to tell you about one more thing before I end. So how does data protection system works? In order for companies to use our data, they have to have consent. So basically somebody has to approve to them, the person whose data those are, that they can use our data. So this is the basics. And we can all say that maybe children are not that aware what they are consenting to, and this is why the General Data Protection Regulations introduced this rule. So I'm going to simplify this article and tell you what this means. It means basically that if a child is less than 16 years old, in order to use all these applications on the internet, such as Facebook, Instagram, Google, in order to sign up for these social networks, they will have to get a consent from their parents. So this is maybe a tool or a way how to protect our children. So we were listening a lot about how children are not well protected and how we need to, what are the new risks on the internet and what are the ways to protect them. So maybe I want to offer you a different perspective in this. So what is problematic with this article is that it changed in the last minute. So the first idea was that the age is of 13 years and less, and at the end it went to 16, probably because everybody were more aware of the risk that are made upon children on the internet. But What I would say is that, of course, we have to think about children's safety, but there must be a balance with adult children's rights, such as right to access to knowledge, right to express themselves, right to participate. And this is why it's important, because maybe we would get something what is called new Sweet 16. So yeah. So I would end up here, and I think I said too many things. So I'm open for questions. Yeah. Thank you for your attention.